Hi everybody, it's Alex Newton from K-lytics, today with our Kindle market trends for March 2022. So let's have a look. We've been monitoring the Kindle bestseller list for the last 7 years, and today I'll share some of the trends and developments, especially for those categories where we saw a shift in sales rank performance. The top Kindle bestseller lists in March 2022 are literature and fiction, followed by romance, mystery, thriller, suspense, sci-fi and fantasy, then non-fiction, teen, young, adult, and then the markets become pretty small, where apart from children's ebooks, we find non-fiction categories in the main. Thus, the biggest royalty pot can be found in romance, mystery, thriller, suspense, sci-fi, and fantasy, and there is no need to take notes. If you're a member of K-lytics, you can download the basic report in the basic member area, and if not, you can get this overview of the 30 main categories on klytics.com/free report. In fiction, starting with romance, we saw a steady improvement of the average sales rank across the top 100 bestsellers here over the last 18 months, but the development becomes more significant if you look at what happened over the last 7 years. The graph starts here on the left-hand side in March 2015, goes all the way up here to March 2022. And we see this exciting increase starting from the first dip in the first lockdown periods all the way up to present time, now reaching an average sales rank across the top 100 titles of 90 store-wide on the Amazon Kindle store, which holds more than 8 million books. And we see that in the first time in 7 years, we've been reaching this level of sales rank. And what's particularly good news for romance authors is that this increase in sales did not come at the expense of dropping prices. Quite the contrary, if we look at the price development over the last 7 years, we see a steady increase in the average romance book prices starting here from this trough back in 2017. So gone are the days of these many 99-cent books and $2.99 books. And we see a lot of books realizing higher ebook prices these days, also in this big and competitive genre. Now, romance trends to watch this month and probably beyond. Here is one. After quite a bit of delay in the production due to the pandemic, we finally got the premiere of Season 6 of Outlander. And here you see the Google search interest for the search word Outlander over the last 10 years. And on Google here on the right-hand side of the graph, we already notice the impact of the launch of Season 6. And there's a corresponding bestseller list on Amazon Kindle, Time Travel Romance, where we see Diana Gabaldon's books climbing back up in the bestseller lists. But of course, it's not just Diana Gabaldon's books which benefited from that. And if we look at the 7-year trend of the average sales rank of time travel romance books on Amazon, we finally see a bit of a rebound here after years of decline in the genre. And what makes this romance category so interesting is that if we plot it on our K-lytics strategy map, where every dot is a category and the higher up it is on the graph, the higher the sales, the further it is to the right, the more competitive it is. We see that this one still sits right here in the middle and in the green zone of what we call hot niche markets, which are categories between 2,000 and 10,000 titles in size. And since it is in the green, comparatively high sales ranks for this size of category. When it comes to mystery, thriller, suspense, we unfortunately see a pronounced decline that started from that peak in September 2021, with March 2022 showing the lowest sales rank that we've observed in the last 18 months. Of course, in absolute terms, it is still a sky-high sales rank across the top 100 titles, and it's important to note that while the overall category seems to be on the decline, there are also good opportunities and uptrending niche markets. Now, before we go there, just one remark on prices. This drop in sale happens to coincide with an increase in prices that we've observed over the past 7 to 8 months. Probably not a direct relationship, but important to note. So at least the prices are going up. And if we look at the 7-year development of various of these categories, one to note here is Terrorism Thrillers, with a strong upturn here over the last 12 months, right here from a low point during the pandemic, and a similar trend in political thrillers, and many of the books here overlap. The terrorism thriller category also features quite a number of post-apocalyptic novels here by Keila Stone, and you also may want to check into the political thrillers and suspense books here, featuring a whole number of both traditionally published and self-published authors. And let's again plot these two on our K-lytics book strategy map, where we see that both these categories are in our hot niche area, each with around 7,000 to 9,000 titles in size, but average sales ranks which are clearly in the top 1,000 of the whole Kindle store. And if you want to know how more than 100 mystery thriller suspense markets compare to each other in performance, I'd refer you to our spring edition of the Mystery Thriller Suspense Genre Report. Then we also have very good news for science fiction and fantasy authors. Here is the 18 months trend line for the sci-fi and fantasy bestseller list, and you see this very solid upward trend of improving sales ranks combined with a healthy development of science fiction and fantasy ebook prices, also with a slightly upward trend line during the same period. One particular bestseller list to note is the cyberpunk category. The books that you find, though, in the bestseller list are not what you might call classic cyberpunk, but instead this seems to be the category where many of the higher selling lit RPG, literature role-playing game, seem to have found a home. Lit RPG has obviously benefited from the novel and then Steven Spielberg movie Ready Player One, as well as the sequel Ready Player Two, but Amazon never introduced a dedicated category for it. Then for the fans of fantasy, I already reported on the remarkable development of epic fantasy, which you'll find in our epic fantasy report from earlier in the year. And here we now have a very interesting cross-section where fantasy meets romance in the fantasy romance or romantic fantasy category, with this very, very strong sales performance during and throughout the pandemic, with a sales rank increase that's so remarkable that we decided to cover it here in our fantasy romance and romantic fantasy ebook market report. If you're into this genre, it is a report you should certainly check out. All right, to close off, overall, fiction continues to outsell nonfiction on the Kindle platform. The overall market outlook is very positive, though. If we take the Kindle Select Global Fund as an indicator, our first projection for the year 2022 points at roughly 20% growth and a total value that is likely to exceed $540 million for the year. You may say this is a bit early to tell just based on January numbers, but we saw in recent years that the January projection was only deviating from the final end results by a couple of percentage points. Of course, this forecast is going to become more accurate as we go along. And also, of course, nobody can tell what the impact of the current crisis in the Ukraine is going to have. Let's hope for the best, not just for the sales, but for the resolution of this global crisis. So much for today. If you don't have a full K-lytics membership yet, I'll invite you to check out K-lytics.com. That's K-lytics.com. I wish you a happy springtime, happy writing, happy publishing. This is Alex Newton from K-lytics, ebook market intelligence for success.